In this lesson, we're going to talk about the Similar Items widget. It's a little control that you can put in a post that gives a little highlight of similar posts that the user might want to go to. So for example, if they're looking at your amazing chocolate cake recipe, it might have a link to 4 other desserts. Really, what it matches on depends on how you configure it. So let's start by adding one to our website. For greater visibility, we're going to use the Customizer widget screen. We're going to go to Customizer. We're going to click on an actual recipe so that we can get it in the correct context. And then we're going to click on Widgets, Post Middle, and then we're going to add a widget. Now this is another widget that comes free with the Kaleidoscope theme, so it's an LCT widget. So look for LCT Similar Items Grid and add that. And there's a whole range of options here. I've decided that the first thing that it's worth understanding that you can do is that you can actually change the order of these widgets within each other. So you might say, I want them to know all about the author. I want that to be first. That's great. You also might want to say, I want the similar items first. I think that's more important. I'll keep them reading my articles. It's really up to you, and you can use the drag drop interface to position them within the post middle area. You can also add lots of other stuff to this. You can add standard WordPress widgets like calendars and archive lists, or you could add a text widget that contains an advertising tag. So maybe you can have author details, an advertisement, and then a similar items grid. Any combination of the three. Now we'll have a look at the actual options on the similar items grid itself. The first panel of options is basically configuring what the similar items grid is going to match on. You've got 2 basic modes. You can either match on categories or match on tags. So for example, if you match on categories, then if you're looking at a dessert in the recipe context, you're going to be getting a list of all the other desserts. You're going to be getting a list based on things in that category. Whereas if you match on something like tags, it might be a little bit different. You might have a tag such as gluten-free, which will match on all the gluten-free recipes, which won't necessarily all be desserts. There might be mains and desserts and other things, but they'll match on tags, which will be gluten-free, as opposed to on categories. So it's really up to you. The second field is the number of posts to show, which in this case is 4. Some of the more astute of you will have realized that they're only showing 2. That's because we only have 3 posts in our website in total. So really that is up to 4 posts. If you had another 2 desserts, you would get 2 more desserts showing there. In fact, if you had 2 more savory things, they would also show there. Because what it does is when it runs out of things to match in its current category, it will fill it with the most recent content outside of the category. And then there's a whole lot of sort fields where you can sort it by published date or descending order. There, we're not going to really go into those in the video. We're going to have a little bit more of a look at the bottom box, which is where you specify how many items to have in your grid. Now this would be a little bit more relevant if we had a bit more data. I can show you what happens when you remove the title. Then you're just left with a grid of images which demonstrate the different recipes in the blogs with actually no text whatsoever. Some people really like this. This appeals to a more of a Instagram, Pinterest kind of like, I just like the picture, I just want to click on it, I don't want to know anything kind of model. But I'm going to use the title in this one. Now I'm thinking that maybe because I only have 2 recipes, I could actually use the 2 item grid. But when I do that, I kind of see the size of the items and I think, yeah, that's pretty dominant. We're looking at some very big pictures in what is effectively a secondary control of our website. So I'm actually going to keep it as a 4 item grid, and as I add posts to my website, eventually it's always going to show 4 items and everything's going to be great. And I can also add a title. I recommend a title along the lines of check out these or similar items or something like that. And as you can see, the changes that you make will update immediately on the screen. And at this point, we're finished. And so what I'll do is I'll go to the actual home page and show you that this is not just for this recipe, this is for every recipe. And every recipe will recommend different recipes based on the recipe that you're currently in. In this case, there's only 3 and they're all just going to recommend each other. It's going to be a very powerful feature that's going to keep the users on your site, which will maximize the number of page views that you get for each user that's on your website. And that leads us neatly into the next lesson, which is going to be about how to put advertisements in amongst the pins using a technology unique to Kaleidoscope. I haven't seen this anywhere. I just made up the buzzword called advertising seeding, which allows you to configure a set of advertisements to get distributed throughout the pins according to the rules that you set up.